Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Hormones podcast. I'm stoked to have you guys here today because we have the privilege of chatting to Alexx Stuart. So Alexx, as I know a lot of you probably know, is the founder of Low Tox Life. So that was back in 2010, which as I'm reading that, I'm going, flip, that's like 13 years.
I know, it's a while ago now.
It's wild. And she's really responsible for the birthing of the low tox movement. So the phrase, which a lot of you guys know, that low tox, has resonated with so many people around the world. And I think even today that positioning our households to be low tox has become more and more common. And I feel like it is a word that we throw around a lot more than what we used to.
It is. And it's why I didn't trademark just the words low tox, because I really wanted people to feel like they could own that. So Low Tox Life, that's how you know it's my work. But low tox for me really encompasses that space between just doing your best with what you've got from where you are, as the old saying goes, and also recognizing it's a modern world. There is a lot that's been brought into the environment, whether it's our food, whether it's the products, whether it's walking past a car with a guzzling engine, whether it's agricultural chemicals. You could go on. There's not no tox. It actually doesn't exist. And I think women do themselves a disservice most of the time by trying to pretend we can chase perfection, whatever that means anyway. And I just never wanted people to feel like that's what we were chasing on my watch when I stepped into educating on these sorts of topics. So, yeah.
It just adds that additional stress, doesn't it? And you're like, well, we're already stressed and we're already battling all these things and gut and hormone things and high cortisol. And then we're like, now I've got to be perfect. And you're right. I see that in women all the time. They're like, okay, my diet's perfect and this is on and this is on. And then they have this whole hormonal imbalance purely from the chase of perfection.
That's it. And it becomes very unhealthy, ironically, very stressful. And when our cells are stressed, we get sick. So, like, why do we want to put ourselves through that? And I've seen so many people arrive into the low tox community who've maybe been in communities that are a bit more intense in the health and wellness space, like really strict protocols or complete departures from, regular concepts around healthy living. And they arrive and they think, hey, where's my meal plan? What do I have to do? What's the protocol? I'm like, no, none of that here. Let's just relax. What are your goals? What are your priorities? What are you dealing with right now that's going to make where you start or what you work on different from the next person?
Yeah, 100%. And I guess it's when you do it that way and it's small changes, and it might just be plastics to glass and then air fresheners and then perfumes and then just like one thing at a time. Whereas, you're right. If someone was to step into sort of your space or your community and then have a whole list of everything to change, one, financially not viable. If you have to change all your cookware or something, it's a huge thing. But then two, headspace wise, you'd just feel so overwhelmed, surely.
Yeah, that's it. And, because there is so much you can change. And so, really it is about setting your own priorities unique to your life stage and what you're working on. And that just takes away the overwhelm, and it means you can really get passionate about a small area you're working on now instead of constantly thinking of all the things you're not doing, which health culture often tries to keep us in, because that keeps us buying ridiculous priced protocols and things on the internet. So, yeah.
Is there a hierarchy? Is there things that you would sort of go after, if someone was new to this whole space, you would go, these 5 or 10 things or whatever, they're really important. This is semi-important. And that's kind of we're further on, we're 10 years in kind of thing, not quite, but, we've stepped through that journey a lot more.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. There's the overarching overlaps of what everyone could really benefit from doing. And then there's preference and need. And that really matters.
What do you reckon are the biggest contributors in our general sort of household to a toxic environment? What are some of the big ones that you would see and go, I would really prioritize that?
Well, look, I think artificial fragrance really is something we need to tackle. And I always feel a bit kind of reticent to bring it up as the first one because it does go across so many categories, right? You're thinking everything from shampoo to your bath products to your fabric softener if you're still using that, air fresheners if you're still using those, candles if you've got a scented candle addiction. It's everywhere in modern life. And so, yes, it's a huge one, which can bring a bit of overwhelm. But wow, is it powerful when you ditch it, because the amount of hidden chemicals that we don't have access to knowing what they are, we don't get a nice, neat little list of here's everything in your scented candle. You just get fig and burnt orange and whatever that is, and you hope for the best and you think, oh, that smells amazing, because culturally that's a normal thing to think smells amazing. But once you actually get all of those synthetic fragrances out of your life, and I never suggest that you should just throw everything away at first. I'm a big fan of the chuck it in a box, put it in the garage for a couple of weeks method, and just switch to a simple fragrance-free bar soap for a couple of weeks, ditch the fabric softener, just don't light any scented candles or use air fresheners in your car or in the toilet bowl or any of that kind of stuff, and just live like that for 2 weeks. Then bring it all back, use it all again on the same day, see how you feel. And people go, oh, that's a headache that came out of nowhere, or whoa, why am I sneezing? Or oh my God, that smells disgusting. And it's really interesting because we've never lived without that kind of stuff until we do. Our body has never actually had the conscious choice as to analyze whether that's good for us or bad for us. And I haven't met someone who's been through that experiment and thought, oh no, I want to bring it all back. Never. And I've had 10,000 people through our courses. So that's where I start.
Perfumes are a big one as well. Like when you don't wear them, and then I catch up with friends who are wearing them, and I'm like, oh, that smells synthetic and that smells strong. And I know you've paid good money for that, but I hate the smell of that. Like it's actually
it's tough.
Yeah, whereas you're right. It's almost like the sugar stuff. Like when I pull clients off sugar for a while for parasites or candida, and we're just recalibrating things before introducing it. When they introduce it, they're kind of like, I can't tolerate as much. Like your body sets a new sort of standard, and you kind of go from there, which is great.
That's it. And some people might be like, so why is it so toxic? Give me a good reason. And one of the chief chemicals that's used to make these fragrances so powerful, so long lasting, if you get hand-me-downs from a friend for your kids' clothes and you wash it once, wash it twice, it still smells like they're washing powder on the third wash. Or you can, like you said, you hug the friend who's got the perfume on, and then you can still smell it in your hair. Then hours later, the family of chemicals that are responsible for that ability for that fragrance to last so long are called phthalates. And phthalates are a plasticizer. They're sticky. So that's why they're used in the long lasting of the fragrance front. They're also used in soft plastics like Glad wrap type things, cling film, and plastic pouches, which is why I'm not a fan of those. If you've got any ladies in your audience with kids and that whole stage of life. So, I'm tangenting, but really phthalates are part of a type of chemical that scientists recognize to be hormone disruptive or endocrine disruptive. And any woman knows it's hard enough to balance your hormones on the best, most perfect month of your life, let alone when you're being assaulted by hormone mimicking and blocking chemicals in your everyday products, right? And we use multiples of these sorts of products. So it can have a really massive effect. It can have effect on sperm health in the research. It can have effect on our fertility because it fiddles around with our hormones. And so the effects of phthalates are really far-reaching on sexual health particularly, and on men and women just as much. So a lot of guys think, oh yeah, that's all your hippie stuff, but they're still living in the house that has the scented candles and the fabric softener in the clothes and the shampoo that they use that their wife buys or girlfriend or partner. And So it's really everybody's problem to get rid of these synthetic fragrances. So that's a universal, let's start there and let's stop using that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there has been obviously an increase of awareness around it, but I don't think the same depth of knowledge is there. I think you're right, at the top frontier, we're kind of like going towards more natural things, and we see more things with essential oils and scented stuff that we're like, okay, that's, there's a lot of borderline things that are portrayed as organic with essential oils, but I think still have a lot of other crap in them. So I think there's like this slow sort of transition over, but the why and the understanding, I think, is taking time. And even the plastics thing, which I thought we were done with plastics. I was like, haven't we had this conversation for quite a long time now? Like, even our supermarkets are plastic free. Like, surely we're progressing, but it's actually, they're still very prevalent. The plastic situation is still sitting around.
It's huge. And, I was so excited to see Dr. Carl talking about it, like such a mainstream scientist by Aussie standards.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to agree with everything he says, but I think it's amazing that a voice like his is now talking about where we're finding microplastics. Because it gets everybody thinking about it, not just the people who've been environmentalists or activists or concerned early adopting low tox parents or women, because you've had a huge hormone issue that forced you to think outside the box, which is why a lot of people know about this stuff at this point, even though newspapers and TV shows aren't talking about it so much. So yeah, it's huge. And I think anywhere you can make a change when it comes to plastics and thinking about what you might be able to use instead. Look, I am not that person who has the one tiny jar of plastic at the end of the year telling everybody how amazing and zero waste. It's just not me. There is still plastic. I could show you the Rapadura sugar that I ordered because I've got to make a double batch of brownies for an event, that I'm taking my son to tomorrow. That's in a plastic pouch. So I'm not perfect. It's not amazing every day. But if we're conscious of those soft plastics and synthetic fragrances, then it's a huge load that is being reduced that we can at least control and work on bit by bit in our own lives every day, every week.
Yeah, 100%. I second that. I think the other big thing that I get asked a lot is about cookware. What should I be cooking with? Because we have this thing about, okay, non-stick, is that not the go anymore? What are our alternatives? And I think just for women who are, typically stereotyping here, are in the kitchen a lot and cooking or doing a lot of meal prep when they sort of enter into my program, and they're like, okay, starting to change my diet. And then they're like, wait a second, what am I supposed to be cooking with?
Yeah, it's look, cooking, it's one of those slightly bigger ticket investment categories that I talk about when going low tox, and that really leads us into the territory of buy once, buy well. Like, we really want to save up. If you don't have the disposable income to just do it tomorrow, save up, just keep using your Teflon pad. Don't freak out about it. You've been fine up till now. So a couple more months won't hurt. And then, use the strategy of relatives wanting to buy you something for Christmas. So just get me a voucher from this store because I'm saving up for something big, and anything you can put towards it's going to be super helpful. So that's one, especially for younger people who might not have a ton of cash, or new parents who are sinking all their cash into their babies. There are different times in life where we have different disposable incomes. So it's nothing to be ashamed about not being able to swap something today, especially when we're talking about investing in like a pan or a pot that's going to be, a few $100s.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, the average Australian buys something like one cheap Teflon style or, old school non-stick pan from the supermarket every single year.
Yeah.
So if you're spending $30-$40 every single year on a new pan because now it's scratched and now it's, sticking and the eggs are ruined in the morning, yada, yada, then you may as well save up and get one great thing you're going to have for the rest of your life, and your kids and their kids are also going to have. And so I'm a big fan of seasoning a cast iron pan really well. It's not hard to do. It's just a new skill. It feels awkward. You might stuff up a couple of times. Your partner might put it in the dishwasher by accident before anyone knows that that's absolutely not what you should do with cast iron. There are going to be mistakes. But once you've got that baby humming, it is just as non-stick, if not better, than any non-stick pan you've ever used. And then you have the benefits of knowing that you're not ingesting forever chemicals like PFAS, which are in a lot of those non-stick coatings. And even some of the green advertised coatings aren't very long lasting. So what you have as an issue there is then you're getting exposed to different types of metals that you don't have much control over underneath once that scratch goes. And then you're still having to buy another pan, and that's going into landfill anyway, even though it was technically low tox to begin with, right? So I'm thinking, what's that brand? Like Green Pan or Neoflam, those sorts of brands. Great until they're scratched. And then they become another non-stick item or an item that's releasing metals that you don't necessarily want to develop a whole new imbalance with.
And like you said, landfill as well.
Yeah, that's
we're buying short-term stuff, which we typically do because we're a grab-and-go type society. And you're right, they're lasting 6 months, maybe a year if you're lucky and you don't have kids scratching them or someone putting metal on it or something. And then, then what? There's no other use for it because it's crap. So
that's it. And so cast iron's great. Then you have, of course, a really good quality stainless steel. If you can find a nickel-free stainless, that's even better. And you would know as a health professional that nickel can come up with sort of skin allergy presentations, that kind of thing. So it's a good one to keep an eye out for. And then, of course, a really good quality old school French oven enamel like a Le Creuset or a Chasseur. I wouldn't go for the no-name brands where you don't have that traceability, where you can't ask the brand for a lead-free certification or testing or independent testing. Big brand is best, unfortunately, when it comes to traceability and knowing that your ceramic isn't going to be contaminated with lead, which can be a concern with some of the cheaper ones. But between those things and then using good quality stainless steel and wooden utensils, moving away from the plastics altogether. Plastics and heat, we know, are not a good thing. So, and then, of course, the irony is we have to use plastic because it's gentle on the non-stick surfaces so they don't get scratched. It's like, well, why don't we get rid of both those things? Because neither of them are a good idea.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, of course, because, that makes sense. And I think about, like, my grandma is the most amazing cook and she lives down in Albany and my grandparents grow everything from scratch and we were kind of raised like that, and bread and just makes everything and eats all her liver and does all the things like we all should be doing. But then I look at what she cooks with as well, and it's all it's the cast iron stuff that they used to cook with. Like, it's like our generation now just seems to be so go, go, go and buy your bread and buy your things and do your stuff, rather than thinking this is how it used to be and this is how we used to cook. And we've just pulled so far away from that.
That's it. And I think if we look backwards far enough, there's a lot of reason in just simplicity and reason in the way grandparents and great grandparents did things, saving things, carrying things over into new meals so there wasn't any waste, being much more resourceful, buying things that lasted, that you passed on to your kids. I saw an article in a mainstream newspaper this week saying, the headline was, "We don't want your heirlooms." Kids who don't want their, grandparents' stuff when they pass away, or their parents' stuff. I just thought, oh my gosh, media could have taken that to how awful that we've come to a place where we're so disconnected from the idea of quality things that last. And so I think when you go low tox, there's very much those two messages. It's about reducing the toxins, and when you think about old things and glassware, there may be some op shop kind of old glassware and stoneware that you don't want because of lead being used in the olden days. But when it comes to things like cast iron, really good quality pots and pans, like I still have my 1970s Le Creuset chicken roasting dish from my grandma. It is still in mint condition. So some of these things really teach us that we need to come back to quality. And we need to also bring into that conversation the things that we now know are unsafe, like your lead, for example.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, with that change and stuff as well. And I guess the other thing was like even clothes and stuff, the resourcefulness of that. It's like how we buy quite cheaply and we throw away things quite quickly and all those sides of things as well. And even Sarah Wilson, someone who's always brought my attention back to those kinds of things as well, that whole simplicious side of stuff and just being really conscious of, not even like, yes, the tops and stuff, but just the whole wastefulness, what a wasteful society we can be. And when we make cheaper stuff, then it's never going to be as good for us anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And I think, falling back in love with quality and things that last and really consciously deciding to bring something into your wardrobe or your kitchen is actually such a fantastic thing to do for your mental health, because it brings us to this much simpler life where we have much less decision making to do. You don't have to buy a new top every week. You don't have to go. I can't even remember the last time I went to a Westfield. I think it was maybe 6 months ago when my son needed new shoes for school or something. I haven't been for the rest of the year because I just don't need to buy that kind of stuff. My shopping center is my local market. My shopping center is my online ethical butcher. My shopping center is those direct relationships that you build with quality sources. And it's a really beautiful opt-out process, frankly, like to just, I don't actually have to be in those awful crowded environments that I thought I loved, but now that I'm spending less and less time in them, they actually kind of freak me out that everyone's just wandering around, ogling things and maybe buying things that we have you know what I mean? It just, when you look at it and think about it, you think, gosh, that's unhealthy.
Yeah, and we're lucky here in Australia. Like, we have such good access to local farmers and produce and good quality meats and things. Sometimes, you need to search for it or buy it online, but you can create these little eco communities as well. Like, I think about Margaret River and going to my butcher or the farmers markets and ordering the Dirty Clean Eats meats and those kinds of things, that you create nicer little systems rather than, the big supermarket haul, in a sense, is just there to take your money, and it doesn't support the same people and it doesn't give back in the same way, and it's also not sustainable in the same way.
And what you've just described there, Sheridan, is connection. We crave it. We don't even know we crave it. We're trying to get it by buying the latest top and the going to the shops a lot, but actually knowing where stuff comes from, making conscious choices, knowing the name of the people who grow your food, or the lady down the road that you swap tomatoes for cucumbers for because you both had a bit too much of either because that's what you grow, or just planting some stuff at the community veggie patch together, that those kinds of things give you a sense of fullness that no transient cheap purchase could ever hope to hold a candle to. And I think opting into going low tox is not therefore just about swapping everything you have for the non-toxic version, but it's actually a life shift in the best possible way.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like over the last 10, 12, 15 years, you've built this community and you've created these amazing resources for people. But if someone was new to this space and they're like, I need to start slowly, where do people start? Is there a good easy course? Is there a good book? Is there something that you kind of go, this is how you can ease your way into it without just going, it's too much at once?
Yeah. Look, I literally build education resources for that reason. So there's a few places. So depending on what your priorities are, you could start by having a look at our lowtoxlife.com podcast tab, and we have an index on all the different women's health or food or environment or inspiring pioneering brands or, all that kind of stuff. It's all segmented. So you can kind of start digging in an area you're interested in. And I said it right at the beginning. If we start where we're naturally curious, then there's motivation and excitement instead of trepidation and dread and oh my God, this is all too much. Just go where you are motivated and excited. And then you could maybe do one of our courses. Go Low Tox is actually a course that I've been running now, which is now available just to jump into and do whenever you want to do. And that's only $98. And it goes through 22 different daily topics where you can just make the swaps, read the research, decide what you want to keep, what you want to ditch, what you want to swap, with tons and tons of different options for different budgets, time constraints, and all that jazz. Lots of DIY as well for people who like going down that track. But not a suggestion that that's the only way to do it either. I'm all about people finding how to find their low tox life, not me telling you what a low tox life is.
Yeah.
So that would probably be, if you were just starting out, that would be a huge help. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect. Like, we're so blessed to have you pioneering in this space and creating these resources. Because the biggest thing is overwhelm at the end of it. Like,
it is.
That's like anything. It's too much. It's too hard. So I do nothing. Like, that's sort of where it is. Whereas when you can go, you know what, start where you're at, and then people go, well, what does that look like? And there are good courses, and there are good books, and there are good resources to step you through is a game changer. And ideally it's what we need. Like, we need you, but we need these resources to help us kind of make the shift, because it is a lot, and it is against mainstream media, quote unquote. So it's that push and pull with people. So I think they are awesome places to start. I'll definitely link them in the show notes. But also your podcast is, an epic place to start as well. And then on Instagram, Low Tox Life is the best spot. Yep.
And anything Low Tox Life, those 3 words together, that's how you know it's me.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for jumping on today. I've really been interested about swapping some of my cook pans, because I've got like some things I'm like, yes, these are great, and other things I'm like, I don't actually know, like the green Teflon type stuff. I'm like, I don't know whether these are actually good or not. So I feel like that's cleared the air for me. So thank you.
Yeah, nice. You're super welcome.
Yeah, and I'll put everything in the show notes for you guys listening, but please go have a look at some of that stuff, because I know there's always so many questions around it. Go stalk Alexx's things and make a start, and see your health change from there. So thank you, Alexx.
Thanks, Sheridan.